Thank you, everybody, for coming out. It's October 2nd. It's time for our regular scheduled board meeting. Tonight, I've asked Commissioner Richardson to open us with the invocation and the pledge.
Right. Father, we thank you for this time together that we have to take care of the business of the county. Lord, we ask you to bless our deliberations, bless our decisions. Lord, make sure that they are well-pleasing to you, and Lord, for the best of our community. We pray for those who are out fighting the fight. Freedom, Lord, those who are in our military, whether they're at home or abroad, keep them safe. We pray for our EMS, our firefighters, Lord, our police officers, sheriff's department, all those who stand in the gap, Lord, to keep us safe and our property safe and our homes safe. We pray that you would bless them, Lord, bless their families, and keep them all safe. And Lord, thank you for all that you're going to do. We pray these things in Jesus' name, for his sake. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Me.
First item on the agenda is approval of minutes from September 18th. Final budget hearing is September 18th, 2018, regular scheduled board meeting.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Sessions.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Richardson. Any discussion or changes? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Moving on to the consent agenda, have 2 through 14. Anything that needs to be pulled for discussion? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve 2 through 14?
So moved.
Make a motion.
Second.
All right, I've heard a couple. I've got a motion by Commissioner Hill, second by Commissioner Sessions. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. All right. Think you can get one of them items in 2 minutes? Jimmy?
Sure.
Our next item's a time specific. We got a few minutes. County attorney has a couple of things that he wanted to bring up under county attorney items, so this time we'll turn our attention to County Attorney Jimmy for that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Basically, it's just a couple of house cleaning things. I got my renewal contract from LexisNexis for the county attorney research program, and before I go signing it and sending it back, I would like to have your approval to do the same. Y'all don't pay for it, I pay for it, but it's in your name.
Any questions for Mr. Pratt on that?
Move to approve.
Got a motion to approve by Commissioner Richardson, second by Commissioner Sessions. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. All right, next one.
The second item is a partial release of claim or lien. This being requested by Mr. James R. Collins through his attorney George W. Blow. This, in a criminal case several years back in 2006, the county, as part of the criminal case, you always have little restitution, and then there's costs that are associated with it that are placed against each of the defendants. Mr. Collins has served his time now and has come out, and he's going to be moving on. And our claim of lien is still of record out there, but the only thing it's attaching to is his homestead. Mr. Blow has filed on behalf of Mr. Collins a notice of homestead, which he filed on September 20th of this year. We have 30 days to be able to say that we're going to pursue the lien, or that the lien would automatically expire. I've gone in and looked at it because the only thing he is anticipating selling is the homestead, and our homestead, and this lien would not attach to any sale that he has of his homestead. So what he's asked us to do, instead of allowing it to just expire in the 30 days, if we would go ahead and approve it right now so that he can proceed with a closing that would be at the end of this week or the beginning of next week, instead of waiting 3 more weeks.
All right. Any questions,
Yes, sir, I do.
Mr. Richardson?
Mr. Pratt, so help me to understand, we have been awarded, is it damages, whatever?
No, sir. In all criminal cases, the state of Florida always pursues costs of the action, such as, the filing fee that they have in there. There's a certain amount of public defender fees that are, attached in there. This one ends up about $2,200, and it is a lien against any other property that he may have, in the county. It attaches to all properties.
Yes.
Well, what he only has here
homestead.
is his homestead, and he is attempting to sell his homestead, through which we could not collect the lien anyway. And so what they're asking us to do is just recognize that 3 weeks earlier than they otherwise would by letting it expire in the 30-day period of time.
This by in no means would set a precedent that would damage us in the future. It's
No, sir.
only dealing with the homestead.
No, sir.
It's
Dealing
expired,
strictly with the
and
homestead.
it's expiring in 30 days, correct?
Well, in any way.
Yeah.
Can't do
So
it.
it's just 3 weeks early, so they can get through this
I just
closing.
want to make sure I understood it.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it. Any other questions? No. Do I have a motion to approve?
Make a motion.
A motion by Commissioner Hill, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Sessions. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign.
Thanks, gentlemen, that's
Thanks,
all
sir.
I have.
All right, this time we'll move back up to our time specific at 6:05 PM or soon thereafter, as the matter can be heard, discussed with possible board action, final, or approval of final plat for Country Springs Estate subdivision. Turn our attention to Ron Meeks.
Mr. Chairman, board members, the Board of County Commissioners gave preliminary plat approval for this proposed subdivision on August 21st of 2018. That was the first step in that process, and they have to wait at least 30 days before they can get final plat approval. The location of the subdivision is in Section 34, Township 3 South, Range 11 East, at the southeast intersection of 225th Road and 148th Street. The property is located in an agricultural 1 zoning district. Total size of the subdivision is 20.26 acres in size, and the lots are a minimum of 5 acres in size, and it contains 4 lots. The access for the proposed subdivision will be on 225th Road, which is a paved road, and that meets the requirements of the land development regulations for the subdivisions. As I previously stated, the preliminary plat approval was given by the board on August 21st, 2018. The plat has been prepared by the licensed surveyor. It's also been reviewed for its compliance with Chapter 177 Florida statutes, and has also been signed off by another surveyor. In your documentation, you have a copy of the application, as well as the letter from the agent, and the title opinion for the properties that are included as part of the subdivision. If you so choose to approve the final plat, the clerk has been given 2 Mylar copies that will require the chairman's signature if you approve it.
All right, any questions for Mr. Meeks? Anything here, sir?
No, sir.
Been through it.
Mr. Sessions, Mr. Hill?
As long as all the setbacks are good.
We don't have to open a hearing. All right, if nobody has any questions, I'll have a motion for final approval.
Make a motion, final approval.
Got a motion by Commissioner Sessions, second by Commissioner Fleming. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
All right, moving on to staff reports, item 16, Catherine Allen.
As I'm sure you can tell, I am not Catherine Allen.
Took me a second. I figured it out.
Yeah, the beard might have thrown you off a little bit. So she is actually on the Housing Education and Research Association Board, and she is off at a conference this week doing that. So that's why you get my beautiful face tonight. So, as usual, we'd like to thank the Board of County Commissioners for your continued support of what we do at the Extension Office. It really does help us continue to meet the needs of the community here in Suwannee County, particularly with 4-H, with my program area. The support of the Board of County Commissioners helps send youth to state 4-H events. So just to kind of give you an overview of what that helped do this past year, It helps send 4 youth to 3 different executive boards, which are is a group of youth from across the state who represent their county and district to help plan and execute state-level events. It helps send 2 youth to a Leadership Adventure Weekend, which is a weekend focused on leadership through the arts and communications. 6 youth to 4-H Legislature, which is a simulation where youth are able to develop their skills to debate, analyze legislation, and speak publicly by sponsoring a bill, amending or lobbying it, and then debating this issue all while in the actual Capitol House and Senate floors in Tallahassee. 12 youth to 4-H University, which was a week-long overnight event held on campus at UF, where youth are able to participate in educational workshops led by University of Florida faculty, explore career opportunities, lead community service activities, interact with youth from all over the state. In particular this year, which was I was really excited about, we were able to support 9 teen leaders and leaders in training to go to 4-H Camp Cherry Lake, which is a week-long residential camp where youth are able to disconnect and learn to be responsible, productive citizens in an outdoor learning environment. 5 youth went to the state meat judging competition, where they have to identify 30 retail cuts, place and rank 6 retail, wholesale, and carcass classes, give 3 sets of oral reasons, and answer questions related to the meats industry. This team actually placed 3rd in the state, and they are in the process of preparing for a national trip in January. And they were also able to help send 7 youth to district and horse state shows. So it's really helpful to get that in the budget and to be able to send these youth to as many state events as possible. So thank you for that. Also in the 4-H realm, we are continually getting more volunteers. We actually have 2 new clubs forming, or actually 3 new clubs forming. One is called Small Town Clovers, and they are a general club planning to work on various projects. We actually have a club starting out at the Florida Sheriff's Youth Ranch, an in-school club there, working with those youth during their class periods. And we have a special interest club called Healthy Clovers that's running in tandem with a rural health program that we have here in Suwannee County with our FCS agent. So as far as office stuff is concerned, we have our carpets that got installed. I believe that went into last budget year, so we got carpet squares just to help if any messes in the office. And that should be finished up this coming week. There are currently hiring freeze at UF for the foreseeable future. Luckily, that doesn't affect us because we have all our agents, but other counties may be affected. Upcoming events with the North Florida Research Center. I have all these flyers, so if anybody's interested, feel free to come to me before we leave. But accessing land for farming, it's a new farmer short course. It's for folks eager to acquire land for agriculture. This will be November 2nd to the 16th, and most of it is online training. And then there's also Focus on Feasibility, a workshop on assessing new business ideas and understanding feasibility studies. And then as far as specific for our extension office, there's a pesticide training on November 6th, and where you'll be able to earn CEU credits to take the exam to become certified, and you can contact the office for more details. On October 11th, there's managing winter annuals for forage and cover crops, 3 core CEUs in the morning and 3 private row crop CEUs in the afternoon. November 9th, there's a beef quality assurance training. December 15th, there's a horse management 101 workshop. And then coming up, we have our fall harvest experience, which covers, the whole office works on it. Last year, we brought 1,275 youth from Suwannee, Hamilton, Madison counties, all to the research center. And this really focuses on ag awareness. And this year, we have our cotton. Yes, our cotton is coming in, and we're doing a pumpkin patch and a forage maze. So a lot of cool opportunities there for the youth. And look out in front of the extension office, because coming up in November, we'll have our hay bale decorating contest with all those lovely things out in front. And actually donated by Starling Farms, which was our Farm Family of the Year for this past year. And then in the FCS department, Family Consumer Sciences, she is running a rural health program that I mentioned earlier, and this is a faith-based interactive health education series focused on eating smarter and moving more, and the target audience is adults with children in the home. However, others are welcome. So that is all that is going on in Suwannee County Extension right now, or at least the gist of it. So happy to be here tonight with you guys. Appreciate it.
You have any questions for him?
I have one.
Yeah.
On the November 6th applicator license thing?
Yes.
is that the one that has turf management in it?
I have this in front of me right now. It does not seem like that is on this one. There's core principles, core examination, private applicator, agriculture pest control, equipment calibration, pesticide arithmetic, and private applicator, I cannot speak. Agriculture pest control or ag row crop exam.
All right, thank you.
So,
Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you.
appreciate it.
All right, moving into general business. Item number 17, discuss with possible board action, bid number 2018-10 for batteries. County Administrator Randy Harris.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I had placed a requested action in your packet. We had one respondent. We did not open the bid, and I had asked that we simply return it unopened and authorize this to re-advertisement, but another option would be to send an addendum out and just extend the time and keep the one that we have, extend it for a couple more weeks, and then just whatever else comes in, once we've established a date certain and time for opening those, we could consider it then and then bring it back to the board. So I would ask that the board consider that instead of what I had originally put in the packet. I think that'll get us there quicker.
Any questions on Mr. Harris? Can you pull your microphone closer? I know if I'm having a hard time hearing you, they got to be. Well, you're right there. Any questions? Well, y'all want to, I'm fine with the addendum and just extend it for 2 weeks.
Yeah, I don't have a
Or a
problem.
few weeks,
Fine.
however long we think we need to.
Need a motion?
Yeah, please.
So move. Extend it.
To extend it, you need 2 weeks, or how long you need it
I
for?
think 2 weeks is fine.
You got a motion to,
Well, let me say this. Subject to whatever dates that we have to select to establish a date certain and open and everything, roughly, let's say just roughly 2 weeks. It could take a little bit longer than that by the time
If
we...
nothing, if nothing else comes in, we just open this one and go with it.
Commission meeting?
Right.
Is that where we're just going to give to the next commission meeting?
Just give me approximately 2 weeks. If I can have it back by then, that's fine. It'll depend on all the dates that we have to check on the building availability for opening and all the other stuff that we do. But roughly 2 weeks is fine.
just authorize him to extend it, and if it takes 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever.
Okay, then I move that we extend it, that we allow county administrator to extend the bid process as much as necessary.
Oh, a second?
Second.
A second by Commissioner Hill. Any discussion? And all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Going on to item 18, discuss with possible board action ordinance addressing limitations of heavy semi-truck traffic on certain roads. Back to you, Mr. Harris.
Actually, I should have placed the county attorney's name on this. We discussed this briefly
Oh, I'll-
today. This question comes up from time to time, every couple of years. Either someone from the public asks a question or a commissioner asks the question about us placing limitations on some of these roads, weight limits. So I spoke to the county attorney about it, and I'm going to just let him respond to the question.
Well, thank you, Mr. Harris. Whenever I look at item number 18 there, I don't really see a question. So, I mean,
The question is, let me refresh your memory. The question is,
no,
can
I'm just kidding. I mean, guys, I mean, this does come up whenever we have rotation on the board and everything. And basically, when it comes up in the situations, it's dealing with agricultural traffic that's going on and off the roads, you know, the big trucks during the summertime when everything is overloaded and blowing stuff out, silage, and then when you get to watermelon season, you know, they got more trucks there with, you know, heavy loads and everything on there. And the question always comes up. Basically, though, under 316, 615, 515, excuse me, that agricultural activities during seasonal periods of time are exempt from all the traffic regulations, basically, let's put it that way, unless they're actually, dumping stuff out on the road, causing traffic hazards and everything. But ag gets a wide berth seasonally while they're doing all of their work. Now, that's not to say that you can't direct them, to go a different way, but you can't prohibit them from doing their activity going on and off. Now, that is totally different situation from whether you're looking at particular roads and particular aspects that are caused by the condition of the road or the travel that's on the road or the people that live on the road that cause you to want to look at lowering speeds for all traffic on the road, or because of the condition of the road, you can go and lower speeds because of the condition, or you can even move forward to prohibit types of vehicles on certain roads with a weight limit or type of vehicle because of the condition of the road. So when you say an ordinance addressing limitations on heavy semi-truck traffic on certain roads, you got to narrow it down to where you're talking about, what the circumstances are on that particular road, and address them individually. You can't just go out there and say semi-trucks are prohibited from traveling on all roads that are not paved. Can't do that. You can't go, semi-trucks are of 80,000 pounds or less are prohibited on any road that is paved. You see, you got to be more specific. Now, I can address more specific items and differing roads because then it can be investigated as the conditions that occur on the road to do it that way. One of the things that we have constantly addressed in the past is areas where you can say you don't want trucks to go through this area. So you want to put up a sign that says no through traffic. Well, the statutes actually prohibit those signs that you see that say no through traffic, except for a very limited period of time because of a condition that is happening on the road. If it's a public road, it's open to public travel, there. Now, the statutes do allow you to be able to say that this is a through street that's designated so that anybody that is on that street knows that they're going to be subject to additional traffic or possible additional traffic. But again, it's one of those things you have to be very specific in what you're doing, and you have to give notice of what you're doing, and then you have to post signs of what you're doing in a limited area. So that's why you need to look at it on a case, by case basis for the road that you want to address rather than, and if you have any more specific questions.
I'm going to give you a specific example of what's going to become an issue because I've lived this before, back when I had hair. What's going to happen when we ultimately have some MSBU projects and these people are paying and over a number of years for these chip seal roads, and the new neighbor moves in and he just happens to drive a semi home every day and park it in the residential neighborhood. Now the neighbors are calling county commissioners raising Cain because they don't want that semi tearing up that road they just paid for. You need to think about if you want to do anything about that before it occurs. Because I can tell you, it's going to occur. Now, you can do like me and just put it off on the county attorney. But at some point, the policy question is going to rise.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I hear what you're saying, but if you do it in one area of the county, when that necessarily go for the whole county itself?
No, sir, that's what I'm saying. You can do specific roads for weight and for size and for speed, but you have to be specific. You can't just do a blanket type of thing. If you go in and you have to investigate the circumstances that are there on the road and show why, and, that it needs to be a lower. Like, the 180th Street Bridge, down there, we had that period of time. Yeah, going across there, during that period of time, you could not allow traffic, heavier traffic to go across there. So we put a limitation on that to, for what you can go across right there. Because of the condition of the road, the poor condition it was in and the bridge was in at the time. And because of those circumstances, you can address these on a temporary basis. That one was addressed temporarily. But if you've got a very poor road out there, you can limit that until it gets, repaired and back up to snuff and go from there. As looking forward to the MSBU situation, once they go out there and they're doing these particular roads, if they're wanting to do that, it's going to have to be, again, look at each of them as you go. Because if it's in a neighborhood and you're going to prohibit somebody from driving their semi-truck into their neighborhood, you're going to have problems with that. Because it's, a public road, going through there. Now, if there is an avenue to be able to pave private roads under the MSTU, program. And when those things happen, any restrictions that would be placed on that road would be done by their homeowners association, and it won't be something that you have to involve yourselves with. I know several of you were not on the board 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago now, when we were really concerned with logging operations and operations that were taking stuff in and out of mining areas. And because every time they would come, up onto the road from out in the woods, come up, they're tearing, anything and everything up. At the time there, Mr. Harris and I went through all of this process to get ready, to look at putting a restriction on the use of those roads and more direction on that. We had done a pretty big study on that, and that particular board didn't want to address it at that time. But that's the type of same study that you have to go through again for each of these limitations that you want to put on it.
The reason why I'm saying that, part of my job, the restriction, the permitting, I know the permits, and I know some of the restrictions when it comes with that, and I don't want to say too much because there may be a conflict, something that we may have to talk about, but on some of those roads that you said about, say no through traffic with the single axle trucks, the tandem track trucks, some of those, whether it's 40, 60, or the 80,000 pounds.
Yes, sir.
Are the restrictions when it comes with the width, length, and stuff. That get a little bit tricky, and the way the permits are done now, they come with them. They come with on the phones. Come in on the phone. It was a blanket permit or a trip permit to allow it one time, but the law has changed so much until they got loopholes around it now. And as you were saying, when it comes to these subdivisions, if that individual live in that subdivision, he may want to take his tractor home. He may want to drop his trailer elsewhere, somewhere else. I kind of thought on the terms of somebody might be able to make some money now if they had a yard that they could park the tractors and the trailer, drop them, and they park them there like any other normal employee, they have to drive to their job, to their location. So why can't they drive to their location? Even though they live in that subdivision, I mean, I have to drive to my job, you know, to my location. So they should be able to have a place that they could put that truck, tractor trailer there. That might be something that could be on the horizon that could come up. I think here we're stepping into something that the state may, you know, and there's some statutes, but it's something that the state may have some requirements.
Well, the exceptions that follow at 316.555 allow them to be able to come in, you know, for the one-time thing like that and with the new weight restrictions, and each time that they change them, they have different routing requirements that they put
Right.
on those to stay on certain designated highways. I think the only time, Mr. Fleming, that it would become a conflict for you as a person working for, you know, for the state would be that if you sat up here on the board and you decided that one of the designated roads that the state wants to use as a detour, you know, to go on there, and you say, no, the county is going to prohibit the use of
Right.
that particular road as a state detour.
But just keep me out of trouble.
That would be, you know, and if that happened to come up, I would remind you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'll just add to that. That may become an issue. I mean, obviously, we're just getting into chip seal projects, but I've had a few phone calls about this, and typically, the people that understand their neighbors do that for a living, they don't complain so much about them coming in and parking their truck on their property and leaving. I have had a few complaints about them parking in the ditches, on the right-of-ways, things of that nature. But the biggest complaint I have is if, you know, say they're hauling rock or hauling trees or trying to get from point A to point B, and they realize there's a shortcut and they can save time by going through this residential area, that's when they start cutting through, and then they start sharing it with their friends, and then it goes from one truck to 20 trucks. That's what I see. I don't, and again, that may become an issue with more of these roads we do, because you're right, it won't take the load of those bigger trucks on a daily basis, but I just wanted to share that. I don't know
Well,
what the thoughts
again,
are
we'd
on
have
that.
to, you know, from the standpoint of making them no through streets, you're not going to be able to do that. And what you're talking about are agricultural activities, which more than likely would, you know, fall under exemption. We can look, you know, a little bit closer on that because 316.15.5 is the agricultural exemptions for all of the statutes going there. But
Is logging considered
an agricultural
Yeah,
activity,
consider
yes, sir.
agricultural.
But that's why, but you can do it specifically and take it out of the realm of agricultural activity, and logging and mining can be taken out of those well, mining's out.
Right.
But logging can be taken out of those activities, and that's what we had attempted to do several years ago, was take the logging out. You know, because of what they were tearing up and doing and those types of things. But that board didn't see fit to, you know, move forward with that project at that particular
Oh,
time.
that was a permit process that we were looking at for the driveway. I thought the board did approve.
I thought they did pass that for
We
the
we
driveway.
actually did the
that day.
permit for the right-of-way, but we didn't do anything about the road itself.
For the
Right.
road itself.
Okay.
I can give you an example of a real problem that we had, and this is how bad it can be. When we finished developing the Klossner site, and they started in business, once they built their facilities, their log yard, and started taking the trees in, when we originally were working on the planning stage and trying to figure out what roads would need to be improved, the conventional wisdom was at the time that the majority of the traffic was going to come from the south to the north to get into that plant. And Commissioner Hale, I think you said that truckers will figure out their routes. So coming out of Georgia, they decided the best route was to come south, get on Stagecoach, and cut across and turn south on 167th. And it didn't take 6 months to totally destroy what had been sort of a paved road. I think it was an old sand mix road is what it was. So it was completely shot. Now, in that particular case, DOT was able to find some money, and they gave us $1.5 million to rebuild it. We can't do that all over the county, and we still have a lot of sand mix roads. And when they go in to start timbering very large tracks, those trucks will run the shortest path they can find, and it doesn't make any difference to them that they just totally destroy a road. So that's what can happen, and it did happen.
Well, I had something brought up to me today. You know, Wiggins Road now is becoming a cut through between 136 and 136A with log trucks, and we're just trying to figure out where they're coming from. You know, just found another way through.
Russia, they're coming from Russia.
Putin's doing it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
not to belabor the point too much, but last year this issue came up early in the growing season. Potatoes went to harvest and down in our district, and it wasn't an issue of a shortcut. And that's what irritated me. If it was an issue over a shortcut, the operators of those vehicles with those tandem trailers would have been going one block further, closer to 349 in this particular case, and cutting straight across on the cut-through street. But these drivers, which was, I believe, is a paved street, if I'm not mistaken, but the drivers were not. They were cutting off into a very residential neighborhood and cutting the block off and then cutting over, which didn't make any sense, and it was tearing up the graded road at the time. And so that's why I brought it up last year, and understanding the complexities of a little bit more of the complexities of state law. I do believe that we have to address this situation at some point in some way. And this was even before we started talking about MSBU. So thankfully, I haven't heard any complaints this year. I don't know if the farming operation got the drivers to drive straight across or not. I don't know, but we did request that. And a lot of these things can be dealt with going directly to the companies without having to have some specific ordinances restricting people.
Anything else?
I don't have no complaints out of the farmers. They're seasonal and things of that nature. I don't hear that. And most of the people live in the areas where farming's going on are farmers or families of farmers. So, you know, I don't see or hear that quite as much as I do, unfortunately, from the loggers and things of that nature. So,
No, you know,
but it's their way of living.
we built a sawmill right in the middle of the
That's
county.
what I'm
and we knew
saying.
that was going to be a problem
That's right.
at some point in time with logs coming. That's kind of the
Yep.
unintended consequences that you get with it.
Yep.
I can take you to roads right now that were paved roads that they logged on at the end of it, and now it's a dirt road. But
Yeah.
you know, you got to give them access to the market with their product. You know, if somebody goes in and plants 100 acres of pines at the end of a dead end road, and it's a paved road. When they come out, it's a dirt road. I mean, that's not their fault that you didn't build it to.
Truck, not to interrupt you, do they not have truck routes anymore? I know years ago it used to be right by
Well, the truck routes,
Winter Weedle down around and,
well, the truck routes that you see are on state designated roads, not on county designated roads. You know, I mean, when you go up and typically bypass roads, you know, and when you see truck routes, they're usually state roads,
gotcha.
you know, that type of thing. So, and they can make that designation. And we can limit it, like I said, you know, on the route going that way, you know, for the speed and, you know, what size that you really want to go, you know, through there. But you just can't go blanket and say, you know, all of this area in this part of the county can't do this. But if you go out there and you look at the individual circumstances on the road, go through the analysis, make the, you know, the notice, and then you make that decision as to what restrictions you want to do, you know, on the road, based upon the conditions that are, you know, that are occurring, you know, out there. One of the things, getting back to the, you know, the logging trucks again, one of the things that we were talking about that didn't get passed on the permits, you know, was to be able to identify by having a, you know, a small permit, to be able to identify the people that were causing these problems. by having a, the permit so that the vehicle's identified, you know what's happening, you'll be able to contact them to, keep these things from happening, and talk with them and see what they're really doing. All the folks that you're talking about parking on the side of the road right now, under our Chapter 67 in our regular book of ordinances, there is a section in there that prohibits them from parking on the side of the road. All the straw trucks and things you see out there where they just pull off on the side of the road and, load up and right there, that is prohibited. And so if it was reported to the sheriff could go out there and write them a nice ticket, for doing that, or write them a citation to go to county court, for that. It is already prohibited.
So the attorney now has pushed this off on the sheriff's department.
See how that works?
Domino effect.
It works. But what you're talking about with the log trucks, if I remember right, was basically creating a business license within the county for the logging companies, and that's why we didn't do it, is
Well, let me back up, let's clarify that. We're not creating a business license because we don't have
We don't.
the authority to make a business license. What we were doing was making a logging permit.
permit, and that, but, which is essentially making them buy a
To use
permit
the
to do
road.
business.
To use, a permit to use the
Actually,
road.
that permit was site-specific, though.
Yes,
The
it
one that
was.
we approved, the board approved was,
That was supposed to be where they enter and exit with their loads to keep
right,
them
it's
damaging.
basically a
the road.
driveway permit.
Right,
Right.
Yeah.
okay.
And the reason that we chose not to approve the eliminating them going into out of subdivisions is that when you think of subdivision, you think quarter acre, half acre, acre, but tonight we just approved 5-acre lots. And there's some 10-acre lot subdivisions, there's some 20-acre lot subdivision. You try to tell a guy that lives on a 20-acre parcel that happens to be a plot of subdivision that he can't drive a semi in there to his house, I don't want
Yeah.
to go into that, and there's no way to say, well, it's going to be half acre or less. When you say subdivisions, it's all plotted subdivisions.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
subdivisions, my issue with this whole thing is the safety of our children in these. Most people who buy into subdivisions, smaller subdivisions or smaller land subdivisions, are going to be people who, number one, can't afford a large acreage tract. They're going to buy the first house, they're going to build the first house, they're going to put a trailer out there on a piece of property. They have kids. My concern is in this particular situation that we had trucks running up and down the road, putting at risk children that lived in the community, and they were smaller land subdivisions. So the question is did the any prior board ever in the LDRs create a residential zoning that dealt for subdivisions, maybe specific size that we were able to restrict a little bit more access to?
No, because the roads in the LDRs are set on how you build the road, not what speed would be going along there. After the road is built, the conditions dictate what, the speed would be done under the DOT. And I can't think of what the name of the daggum booklet is. It's about that thick. For the specifications, uniform specifications of design and road standards. Anyway, all has that in there. And what we did was set how you build it, not how fast it can go and who can go there in our LDRs.
Is that something that can be amended?
No, sir, that
Something we're
would
restricted
be,
from?
no, sir, that was going to, if you're going to do that, you're going to have to go outside the LDRs to address it like we're talking about in this fashion on an individual basis.
Okay.
If you changed your zoning classifications, you could do it, because you could require that. You could require a special use permit or special exception to park in, say, residential subdivisions that had parcels that were less than 2 acres or whatever you decided to do. And then it would come before the board and you would consider conditions that you might establish, certain setbacks and any number of other things. For instance, not allowing them to run a reefer unit all night long so that their neighbors have to be bothered with that. But that's the only way that I can think of, and I've seen it done before.
Well, that was the main issue that we had last time, was the reefer units.
Right.
And the reason we didn't do it is because you couldn't cut out a smaller section. If it was subdivisions, it was all subdivisions. I remember.
Well, and we didn't, and when we were addressing that again, you mentioned that even back then, the 5 acre, 1 acre, half acre, where do you set that limit and what would be an appropriate buffer,
Yeah.
if somebody wanted to have that a reefer unit there. And Mr. Richardson, when we were talking last year about that, you'll recall it was, like you mentioned, cutting through the farm stuff, and it was agricultural, what takes it out seasonally exempt, from all of those regulations anyway. So,
That's why some of these situations, the farms are best, you just talk to the farm folks and let them know, and they just give a call to their drivers, and a lot of the drivers just stop doing it. Whether each one of them does, I don't know.
Sounds like a plan. I don't think we need an ordinance for that. All right, any other discussion? Moving on to item number 19, discuss with possible board action developers, or amended developers agreement regarding intersection improvements at State Road 51 and County Road 250. Mr. Harris.
I'm going to give you a report. We really don't have anything to amend right now. I've spoken to Mr. Pittman, Mr. Pavat. And there is one piece of this that we need to discuss, though, and that's the opening of the store out there on 51 prior to the time these road improvements are completed. We have numbers that we've run. We bid this. It came in extremely high for this intersection improvement. We talked about the county doing part of the work, the developer doing part of it, us coming up with a fair split on the costs. One large component of this is I guess, a still outstanding question of whether or not we're going to be required to mill a part of 51 out, that brand-new asphalt, and put it back just so that the new paint striping for that intersection can be done. Mr. Pittman spoke to DOT. Is he here tonight, Jimmy?
Yeah, he is.
He went over there and bowed low, burned incense, wasn't very good at it. They didn't even like him, but in any event, they told him no, that he couldn't do it any other way but mill the road and restripe. But the developer took a stab at it, and as of about an hour and a half ago, I had a call, and DOT has now agreed to ride out there next week, take a look at it, and make a decision. There are some alternatives. One would be hydroblasting the new striping off and then restriping or grinding. So we really won't know about that until next week, but it's a pretty significant cost if it has to be milled out and repaved in order to stripe. In any event, what this really means is that the clock keeps moving toward that anticipated opening date of that store. Clearly, if that store opens before these road improvements occur, it's going to be a horrific maintenance of traffic problem trying to build that intersection at the same time of the grand opening. So I had discussed this with Mr. Pavat earlier, and I know I spoke to the chairman about it. My question is it the intent of the board that store not open until these road improvements occur? Because it was in the hearing that we brought this condition upon the development of the store, that the ingress-egress was not going to occur directly off of 51, but it was going to go to that intersection. Then we got into the realignment of the intersection and all of that. So you're going to have to decide what your intent is, and then
Well, I think from the very beginning, that was the intent of the board, is for both roads to be realigned and the ingress egress not be where it's at now, to be realigned for safety purposes and.
Safety, yep.
not where they had proposed it. Remember, they had
Right.
proposed it.
Yeah, they proposed it there, but I mean,
We wanted to change it due to the safety factor of the whole thing, and I think I hate to keep them from opening up, but we need to have it fixed before it does.
well, to me, that's part of the project. That's how it was
Yeah.
approved by the board as part of the project.
as part of the transportation element for the,
That was our input.
for the
For the
approval of the.
one of the conditions of the approval.
Right. If it's not done, the condition's not met, so I wouldn't think you could open your store. Me, you're the attorney, you can tell me if I'm right or wrong.
Well, that's what I'm calling it. How's that?
Okay,
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
Because
sir.
of the
that's a
transportation
condition.
element.
Right.
My question is, since this is our part of this, it seems that the developer, the store owner, has done their part,
They haven't.
They haven't.
build.
They have.
They have
built the
not.
Store.
They have not realigned their side of the road.
Okay, so then, what my suggestion is that if we negotiate anything, it's timeline to get it done. If they're concerned about it, then we need to hold them to their timeline, and they need to hold us to a timeline. That's the only thing I could think of. But
The only
I
question.
agree with everyone on here about the safety concern, and that was our condition. I was one of the proponents of that in the very first place, was to realign the road. But I also understand that, timing of getting a store open as quickly as possible is also important to the developer and the owner. So I just want to make sure that we don't drag our feet on it as slow as I don't think we would, but.
Now, we're prepared to get started, and this came up because we had to come up with a fair apportionment of the expense. And the 51 milling and repaving is a very large expense. When that became a part of it, the developer had concerns because they hadn't budgeted enough to cover that additional expense, and want to know if we could cap their exposure to $75,000 because their part of the cost was $100,000. And I told them, no, we're not in that business. We're not in the business of capping. And I offered them an alternative, and that was to self-perform all of the work on their side of 51 and then share in half the cost of the paving of 51. But I don't have any reason to believe that's going to come up any cheaper for them, and they don't either. So, but having said all of that, they were of the opinion that they were not going to be restricted from opening that store without this intersection improvement being done. I had a different opinion. But I think now it's going to be much more urgent to them to come up with a resolution and decide what they're going to pay and move forward. Because I told them we were prepared to start right now. In fact, I had Mr. Pittman working on getting the power poles relocated by the power company. He's spoken to them already. But we're ready to jump on it and make it happen. Our part was going to be to go in there and do the cutting and the sub-base grade density and everything, get it to where it could be paved, and then us
November 20th.
come up with a fair apportionment of expense.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
in
sir.
addition, one of the conditions they have not met, even though I'm not aware of what the surveying process has been on the realignment, they have not conveyed to the county the property that would make the curve or straighten out the curve.
I got you.
They haven't done that yet. So, still waiting to receive that.
Yeah, my question wouldn't be no good then. I was gonna ask what the expected delay time is, but you guys don't even have any of the information, so it's hard to even say, so. I know they're not gonna wanna delay it, because I'm sure they got the matrix figured out. Every day they're not open, that how much money they're losing, so they're gonna wanna.
Well, when they realize that it isn't going to open until the intersection improvements are made, I promise you, they're going to move a lot quicker than they have been for the last couple of weeks. Because honestly, we had asked them for information. Mr. Pittman had spoken to them that he wanted their unit costs on the paving piece of this, because they're in the paving business. They were going to handle that. It was cheaper all the way around, but it took them a week and a half to come up with numbers. And then that's when they realized, too, that 51 was going to be an issue. And I've told them very frankly, look, you guys are delaying the project. And I know you want to open sometime in November, but you're going to have to come up with some information and get to the table and let's resolve this thing. So really, the ball's in their court. We're ready to get it underway.
I mean,
I got one more question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let's just say you started Monday. How long would it take? Doing our part? 6 weeks?
No, I don't have any reason to believe. It's only about a quarter of a mile, so
So
it won't take
let's-
very long. How long is it going to take them to move those poles? Did he tell you?
Once they get out there, it should take them a day or so.
Yeah, we just don't know which day they're going to be there, to spend that day moving them. It isn't going to take us very long. I'd say 3 or 4 weeks, we can cut that, have the rock in there, everything cleaned up. I mean, we'll go in there and remove the other piece of 250 later, but we can get it boxed out and rocked in density and ready to move and shake in a fairly short period of time.
So if they did their part pretty quick, we could probably beat their deadline anyway. Because their deadline's like
We can if they hurry.
middle of November, right? It's up to them.
Yeah, they
now,
need
really,
to
the
set
process.
that piece of property aside for the road to be built. We need the paperwork on that, the power poles need to be moved, and we're ready to go to work. Utilities, I think we've already called for those to be located.
So do you have a daily discussion with them, or they call you
I
when they
think I've
want?
spoken to him 5 times today.
Okay. I just say, I would just make a list of what, to move forward, like Jimmy said about the land, you know, there's a good starting point.
I wasn't aware that they had not done that yet. But that's on them, they just need to get it done.
I don't think we need to do anything though, right? Because it's in the original agreement, these terms. I mean,
No, I just wanted to make sure that we were clear, and I had spoken to Mr. Pravat about this, and just want to make sure that the board, it was the intent of the board that as a part of that approval that we did previously, where we changed that ingress-egress point and agreed that it would come on 145th, that it was the intent that that be a part of the development, and that, I mean, we won't issue a CO until that, all of the work is completed, because that's part of the transportation component of that approval. That's really all I needed.
All right, anything else on that one?
no, sir.
All right, item number 20, discuss with possible board action authorization to undertake a 5-year fire rate study. Most recent study was completed in 2013, Mr. Harris, or James, whoever's presenting.
Chairman and Commissioners, this is simply doing another study. We have to justify, we have to be able to defend our fire assessments. An evaluation is always done. They come back and tell us what the rates could be that would be justifiable. Right now, you know that the maximum that we could charge, we don't charge. You've got a number there that's higher than what we currently charge. So this does not mean that the rates would increase. It just means that they would be justifiable. The last time this was done was 5 years ago.
I just had a question on this. We're not at the max rate, and I don't know if the board has an intention to be at the max rate. Typically, when you do these studies, the rates go up, not down. Is it necessary to have it done?
Yes, sir. I mean, you periodically have to do it. Typically, it's between 3 and 5 years, and we're at the maximum now, at 5 years, when you go through the cycle on these things. Again, it being a study, it doesn't mean that y'all have to make the change or anything, but you want to have a current study to justify whatever rate, that you do set.
Well, I know the last time we did a study, it had been way longer than 5 years since there had been a study done prior to that one. And I remember one of the comments that was made when the board opted not to increase it was that if we're not going to increase it, why are we spending the $20,000 to have the study? And that's kind of my question. If I have no intentions of increasing it. I'm satisfied with the study we've got. So I really don't want to spend the $20,000 if that's what the ticket price is again this time, if the board has no intentions of doing anything with it. I feel, knowing what we've done, we know the price is going up. I think we can defend the number that we're at now with the current study. I could be wrong. I'm not an attorney. But that's just my feelings on it.
Well, again, when you look at studies, and especially when they are tied to rates, you know, with inflation, non-inflation, with the costs underlying services, as well as just, like I said, just the plain rate of inflation, you want to have a current study of 3 to 5 years to have a basis. I'm not saying that you go out there and you couldn't justify because your mind is made up that you're not going to increase it. But a study would show what the actual costs are that we are expending and what it would justify a rate to be. I just think you need to have a recent, current, something to stand on. Just take the opposite view, Mr. Chairman. If a citizen came in here and they were complaining that a service, they weren't getting a service because y'all are only, charging X amount of dollars and then taking the rest of it out of general funds or to pay fire out of general funds, or having to use the funds that were being generated by fire, when they could have better service because of the rates because of the money that's being generated, being able to increase service. So you have to look at it from both standpoints.
I understand, but I'd rather
Lawyers-
fight that argument every 4 years than even one of increasing it. It's just,
It's not a statute that we have to do it.
No,
It's just a good thing.
no, it
no,
is.
and
Isn't-
what'll happen to it, and I can tell y'all from experience, when you get the study's gonna come in a lot higher than what you are, and that's gonna become the justification every year after why you need to go up. Because you're gonna say, now we're not even funding it at 20% or 30% or 40% or wherever you fall that in your study. So if you're aiming to keep the rate low, you're fueling the fire to go up if you do the increase. That's all I'm telling you, because it's going to go up. It's going to be $150 or $200. And then you're going to be funding it at 100. You're not even going to be at 50% if it goes up to 200, and that's going to be the ammunition against you to go up. So I'm fine not doing it, but I'll leave that up to y'all.
Well, I think we know we are below, and we know that we've done that on purpose to save the taxpayers, and to budget the best we can and have James and his staff budget the best they can. I mean, is there not something without paying the $20,000 we can look online, look at a community with the same amount of?
Now, the study's what gives you your legal basis to stay where you need to be.
And there's nothing mandated state or federally that we have to do.
That you have to do it every 5 years. It's just good practice to do it every 3 to 5 years. The fact of the matter is, though, if you're not even at your max rate now, what is your end goal on doing the study? You know you're not funding it at 100%.
Right.
You just gonna pay somebody $20,000 to tell you that?
Mr. Chairman.
I mean,
Mr. Chairman, would it be to our advantage to
I'll do a study.
ask our fire chief or county administrator to help us out with this? I know when we had the last rate study, we went round and round about it, and as you said, we're not up to where we should be. At some point, at some time, that we're going to have to. It might be better. You said that you was all right like it was. Next year, the next 2 years, we may be in deeper water.
oh, I understand, but right now, you have the option this year to go up $18 a house. And I don't see the board doing that. I mean, 2 years ago, there was a motion made to go up $2 a house, and it got shot down. So, this is different. Name and address for the record, please.
I'm James W. Pravat Jr. I'm a citizen here in Suwannee County, living out on 141st Lane. I am here today to talk to you about our fire assessment. Our fire assessment, you guys have been holding this thing down so low for all these years,
You're welcome.
you know? But if you had this fire assessment and the fire assessment where the study says that it should be right now, we'd already have another fire station serving the north end of the county. We'd already have another fire station in the southern end of the county.
Right.
Because, this is what I'm talking about, Mr. Chairman.
And
Looking
I
at it from
understand
the
that,
standpoint.
but that's not the arguments I get when I'm out there talking to people.
I understand. And what I tell y'all, and what I've told all of y'all before, is that when you ask me the circumstances, I tell you what is legal. I won't tell you what is political. And so y'all have to make that decision. And this decision, it is not a requirement, not a legal requirement.
That's all I needed to hear. Thank you.
Enough said.
That was fun. Nah, we got him stirred up. I knew I could get him up here tonight.
Here comes Bo. Listen, I'll just,
Yep, we would.
I hadn't thought about, we should get one of those. We can just pass it around.
Yep.
there you go.
You got some
Shirley
people in the
Howell,
audience that wouldn't give it back.
7408-169 Drive. I'm all for keeping things low, but I've been on the other side of this, and it's not worth it. It's not worth it. You can't do that. I mean, if it was me or a member of your family, you have to be proactive. You have to look at what this county needs. This county needs another fire station. You made some good steps with fire trucks, ambulances. That's excellent. But you need to look ahead, because we're looking for growth in this county. We want businesses, all these things. You've got to have the proper first responders in place for all these things to happen. So I encourage you, I implore you to do the study.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the only comment I'm really making is that if we're not at the max rate now, the study's pointless.
And we obviously know that at some point in time, to move forward with some of these projects, it may be something we have to do, but honestly, I agree, we don't necessarily need a study to tell us that. We know where
But
we're
I mean,
at,
if,
and we know the direction that we want to go.
if you're gonna do a study, I mean, you max out what you got before you spend the $20,000. I mean, if you're not willing to max it out now, and I'm not willing to, then the study is pointless. It's just gonna raise your rate, and then once you raise that rate, then it gives more fire to Mr. Pravat to come in and say you're not funding it where it needs to be funded at. Because right now, we're only $18 off, but if you go do a study and it comes in at $200, now you're $100 off. Yes, sir.
Commissioners, Chairman, the data that you're going off now has completely changed. You fund it as where the board sees to be funded. It gives you ranges, that's all it does. It basically takes all the data, your wildland, which has changed, your ag exempt has changed during the study, so it will be a change in your ag exempt. Your traffic on the interstates have changed, your call load across the board has changed, you've added stations, your whole response has changed. So if something happened and we went to court, there'd be a lot of variables that would be hard to defend because the data that was presented during your study has changed.
Now, we haven't added a station since the last study.
We added Station 5. Station 4 was in the process. Dowling Park was in the process during the last study.
The study's been since I've been on the board.
We did the study in 13. We added Station 5 and 14.
Station 5, I thought was already added.
No, it was added in 14. So
Already
we've
constructed, though.
added personnel and all that. So just giving you the information, the call loads changed, your demographics have changed. So that's where we're trying to be defendable. You can set the assessment wherever you feel to set the assessment.
But the data was presented during the last study has changed.
Chief, can you tell us how far are we off? Or do you know?
How far are you off on the assessment?
$18.
18?
That's correct.
Ricky, can we, who's funding the assessment?
The
study?
The study's funded.
The fire assessment studies it every year, every time we do it.
So you're going to fund it now?
We're funding it out of the fire assessment we have before. Because what it does is you have to percentage EMS and fire out specifically because you cannot fund anything associated with EMS from fire. So the fire assessment pays for it, and we have to make sure the percentages are right. And that's what this company does. They take data from all of our call load, the population of the county, the agricultural exemptions, the traffic on the interstates, the residential units, the commercial units, response times. They take all that into consideration. We provide them all that data. They go through, and their attorneys, they're experts in the field for defending these types of things, and they make sure that we're defendable in court, and they give us ranges of where we should be. We percentaged out, the last assessment was 2773. We may be up, we may be down from that for our cross for personnel, things like that. So that's what they look at. They provide us with a study, and they give the board the information to make decisions. And Commissioner, I can't answer the where should we be. I know where some of the other counties are around us. It depends on what kind of service the board would like to provide. So that's basically where you should be.
Best answer you've given is that it's whatever level of service you want to provide is what you have to fund. And in the past 2 years, the board has, I don't think, turned really down anything you've asked for. You got 5, instead of 5 trucks, you got 3 trucks. You got tankers this year.
Yes, sir. We got 3 engines and 2 tankers.
We're not at a rate where we're not funding his requests. There's contingency in the budget. It's just a matter of do you want to do the study or not.
Well, the only unintended consequence of this whole thing is the increase in traffic on 10 and 75, which is, I'm sure, increasing your call load. Every year there's more traffic, so every year you're going to have more calls. Maybe there's a way to, I don't know if it's legal, to fund part of the fire assessment through some type of, not a tax, but let's just say we get 3 new hotels, and we take some of that bed tax, and
You can't do it.
You can't do
legally
bed,
do that.
Can't do that
can't
now.
do bed tax.
Because some of that's driven by the people on the interstate, but anyway.
It's designated by statute how it'd be used.
Well, that kind of a valid point. I mean, would it be wiser to wait until next year when maybe some of the projects are finished out in that area that you're talking about and some of the things?
To do the study?
Yeah. Because that could change the whole dynamic of the study, could it not?
Oh, it would.
Which projects are you speaking?
Let's just say that 136 and 75 all of a sudden has 3 hotels and 2 restaurants and whatever. That would change the study if it was done today or done when those are built.
That would change the study to an extent, but if you think about the radius, Welborn is servicing that area. The other changes with that station, and I mean, our greatest void is actually, we're going to pick up all the stuff out here where Clausner is, everything up in the northwest.
Well, and I say too, with 10 here, I mean, there's a lot of things happening out there that's going to change in the next year. I mean, and I think we would change that study if we.
Well, I will say this, you're always going to be behind on your study.
Always.
You'd have
And
to
as
do it
soon
every
as you
year.
have it done, it's outdated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, if you do it every 3 years or every 5 years, then you're always behind, and that's always been okay. So there isn't the best time to do it. But for sure, there hasn't been one done since a lot of changes have occurred. We've had significant changes in all the criteria that they're going to use to evaluate in their modeling when they come up with a rate.
Any other questions on it?
I mean, I'll just say having a study done either way, I don't think is going to change anything right now. But it doesn't, I mean, it sounds like it's information that you guys are, what part, let's go back to the part where if there was a lawsuit or something, or if there was someone questioning us on what the chief said.
Well, basically, when you start out with, it's, the chief's problem is going to be, response times and getting there.
Yeah.
So that's generally talking about what your level of service, is, and what you funded, to get there with your designated level of services. It falls in, but it really, it's ammunition for someone like me to say, well, this is what they say that we're spending. We're spending almost all of that money to be able to give you the maximum service, that you have available, or that you've allowed them to be able to do. What it hurts you then, on the other side, is you say, well, this is the service that you want, but you're only funding the service, down here at this level, but this is what you say that you want and what the citizens here need, but you're only funding it down here. So you gotta
Which
look
goes
at.
back to my point, unless you're willing to raise it, it's going to give ammunition to an attorney to come in and say, well, you're only funding it at 50%, you're only funding it at 40%. Right now, you're funding it at 75%.
Well, see, I can turn around and take the other side.
I know, but you can, unless you do the study and fund it at 100%, anybody can come in and make the argument that you're not funding at an appropriate level.
That's full match.
mean, and
Mr.
that-
Pravat, when's the last time your client did a rate study?
This client? That would be the first question they're going to ask, right? No, but it'd be on the first page of questions, that they would ask.
Listen, I'm not pitching this thing one way or the other. I just know that it's been about 5 years. I knew that. Mine's just a question. Ultimately, y'all decide what the rates are going to be.
And I want to stress the same.
I'll just tell y'all from my experience, I voted to do the rate study last time, but I was not in favor of going up on the fire assessment. But then it gave the room to go up on it. And so I don't want to go up on it, and I know I don't want to repeat what happened to me last time. So if y'all want to move forward with the study, that's fine. I'm going to be in opposition to it because I know it's going to set the room to go up further than where I want to be. And so I don't even want to go down that avenue or open that door, so.
And listen, I agree with you to a point, but I'm looking at, I don't know that it needs to be done now because I'm just looking at what's going on out there, north of the tracks, and I just think that if we did a study today, in 2 years, it'd be outdated, like you guys say. I know there's things going on. I know we all agree we need a station.
Well, here's the best question for you. Let me show of hands of who plans on being over $118 on the fire assessment next year or the year after that. If you don't, why are you doing the study now? You're going to be 2 years into that study and you still haven't moved the fire assessment up to your max rate where you're at now. So that's what I'm saying. Unless you're willing to take it to that max rate, why do the study? Because your study's just going to keep getting older and older, and it's going to be, if you plan on going the next 4 or 5 years, you need something.
Mr. Chairman, you mean to tell me that you have already made up your mind on an issue that hasn't come before this board without even seeing any data to be able to present?
Pretty much.
All right,
I'm just telling you up front.
checking.
I made my mind up on that when I stood up there and said, I promise in the next 4 years, I won't vote to raise taxes. So, I made my mind up. I might fund it through a different funding source, but if you want to know the truth, that's where I'm at on it. And I'm passionate about it. And if y'all want to do it, that's fine. I'm just telling you where I'm at.
Is it my turn?
Yes, sir, you're going to have the floor.
Just for a little bit. Mr. Hancock said, amen. I voice your sentiment. Amen. But I know that it will cause a stir. But it is something that we have dire need of. We do need, and we wouldn't have to worry about the fire station on the north side of the track. we would, this stuff would already be in place. As I said earlier, if we don't do it now, you're gonna pay later, deeper.
Well, the study doesn't raise your rate. You know, the board still has to vote to raise the rate, and obviously the board's chosen every year not to go to the max. All my point is if you're not going to be at the max and you're doing it now, every year that you're not at 118, the study's going to waste. You may be at 118 or for another 2 or 3 years, and then your study's 3 years old. Now you fix to have to do another study.
Understand?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
my daddy always taught me to learn from my brother's mistakes, and I never did it. Last year, I almost got crucified for just suggesting that we might
$2.18.
give ourselves 2.3% or whatever it was to adjust the fire assessment for the loss of the properties on the agricultural lands. I have no intention of supporting this request to do the study until we feel like we have the need to. I'm just going to tell you that right now, so you can count my decision in to yours. It sounds like we don't have enough votes to even get it, so I wouldn't suggest anyone here on this board make the motion. That's personal. That's where I stand.
Not that I will make the motion, but I think it's for some discussion that
We've had a good discussion.
these things gotta be talking about instead of kicking the can down the road.
I'm not kicking the can down the road.
And it ain't justifying what we need, you know, to have in place, because at some point in time, I keep saying, I may not be on the board, but I hear about it from still living, that this decision had to be made, had come to a decision, had come to a head, that these studies, now I know I'm not making the motion, but I think it is something to think about. Maybe we need to move on and bring it back. When is the deadline?
There's not one.
There's no deadline? Well, let's bring it back at another time.
Well, let's go ahead and take the 20,000.
About 5 years out.
Let's go ahead and take the 20,000.
Sounds like a great,
Move it over.
I'm
to
writing it
the-
down on my calendar.
Let's go ahead and take the 20,000, and if we don't want to waste it, and just move it over to the money we set aside to start the North End Fire Department.
Didn't we put 200,000 over there? I'm good at putting another 20. There we
We
go.
know what we need.
And
Sounds
we do
good.
know what we need. We don't need a study to tell us. We know where we need the growth.
Yeah.
Right.
I will say that I have fewer concerns with the I-75 and 136 location.
That's not going to
We're putting
change,
fire flow.
that's
We're
not
also
going to
putting
change your
hydrants.
rate unless there's a demand out there. What will change your rate is building a new station,
Right.
adding more employees to the payroll with the new station. That will change your cost.
And I agree, and that's why I'm focusing more on the north side of town, just because I know that is really moving out there and things are happening, so.
Any other comments on it? Do I have a motion or anything?
To move the 20,000 over there? Absolutely.
Moving on to item 21. All right, does anybody want to do anything on that? All right, and we'll move on to the next item. Item 21, discuss the possible board action, any issues associated with the wastewater or water treatment plant at I-75 and 136. Any changes, Mr. Harris?
I would just ask that you authorize Mr. Pravat and myself and our consultant to begin our negotiations with property owners for easements. We need to get that underway.
Yeah, we do need to go ahead and do that. You need a motion to do that?
Sure.
I make a motion.
Got a motion by Commissioner Sessions,
Second.
second by Commissioner Richardson. Any discussion? Hear none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Are we going down both sides of the road with that easement, or is it just,
I do,
It's a secret.
okay?
hold on just a minute. I just realized something here. Give me 1 second.
They know it's coming one way or the
Test
other.
wells, we need to deal with test wells.
Starts on the north side, ends up on the south side.
That's what I thought.
That was actually on the consent agenda, and we didn't have the
You the letter.
letter back to you in time, so we need to deal with this now. We can do it under 21. And for the record, Mr. Chairman, we need to scratch item 13 because we didn't have the letter to be considered at that time. On,
No. When I asked if we need something pulled, we didn't pull it.
Yeah, we just did the letter.
if we could handle that item under 21.
Let's go for it.
Okay. We got 3 bids on the test wells. These test wells need to go in prior to us doing the modeling and everything that's going to take and working with the permit agency to come up with the designs. In any event, you've got the recommendation of North Florida Professional Services to enter into an agreement, award the bid, and enter into an agreement with Drill Pro. We had 3 bids. One of them didn't even send any of the information that we require in our bid solicitations. They just sent a number, and it was just an incomplete response. The second one provided more information, but they left out some of the information. So we really only had, the third one, Drill Pro, was the only one that actually submitted everything that we required in our specifications. So the recommendation, and these prices were all very, very close. $59,405, $62,095, and $62,550. So the requested action is to award the bid and execution of a contract with Drill Pro. In the
Any
amount of
questions?
$62,550.
You have any questions for Mr. Harris?
I know.
What's the wishes of the board? Have a motion to approve it? Again?
Second.
Oh, I didn't have a motion.
I thought you had I thought I swore I heard somebody down there say I had a motion.
I'll take that as a motion. I got a
Oh,
motion to
we have a
approve by Commissioner Richardson.
I move that we approve Drill Pro.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Got a second by Commissioner Sessions. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Anything else under that item, Mr. Harris?
No, sir.
All right, going on to our additional agenda items. We had 2. The first one will discuss a possible board action agreement with Chamber of Commerce regarding economic development. I apologize to y'all. I thought this letter made it into your packet, but there was some, Chamber had it to us in plenty of time, but there was a hiccup somewhere in the process, so y'all have it now. If y'all need a few minutes to look over it, I'll be glad to grant you that few minutes to look over it unless you've already had time.
Mr. Chairman, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
Is this, I don't know all of the agreements that are in place for the Economic Development Director in the first place, so I would be curious what the administrator, how he looks at these bullet points. Do
Well,
they acceptable to you?
yeah, Mr. Chairman, for the benefit of the public, I'll just say that this is essentially a proposal to provide on an interim basis the services that the Economic Development Director had otherwise been handling for the board. And the Chamber is willing to take on those responsibilities for $5,000 per month, which we can fund because that salary has now gone away.
Gone away with.
With the resignation, so.
And I would tell you that amount, when the Chamber provided the services back prior to, I think, like 2013,
Yeah,
it was
so,
$5,000 a month. I
In
mean,
my
that's-
opinion, it's a
reasonable amount.
offer and a reasonable rate. And I'll be the first to tell you, I don't have time to handle that in this interim time frame.
No.
Someone needs to do that.
Question,
Yes, sir.
how does this work with the city?
answer. Nothing works with the city,
No,
but
how is this
Did I say
going
that
to
out
work with, how the funding, you know, how them, it would help them pay?
Is
They're
your
not.
question, are they?
They're not
are they-
gonna help?
I
Yeah.
mean, no.
They're going to pull their funding completely?
Who knows? I haven't heard anything from them. Have no idea where they're at with the funding. I think they, I don't even remember what they approved last go around, 25,000, I think.
Yes.
So, they may stick with us through this process, they may not. I haven't spoke to them,
I
I don't
haven't
know.
spoken to them about their budget that they just adopted. I don't have any idea.
I don't even know if it was in it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve this as it's, if you are comfortable with it, I certainly am not uncomfortable.
I'm comfortable with it.
If it's going right, if it's, I approve it.
All right, so I got a motion by Commissioner Richardson to approve. Got a second by Commissioner Fleming.
That's it.
Any questions or comments? All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. All right.
Mr. Chairman, can you go ahead and, because I'm going to have to draft up just a real short agreement, you know, on this, can you go ahead and whatever format I come up with, that
Authorize the chairman.
Chairman to go ahead and sign it?
Sign an agreement between us and them based
Yes.
off of this letter.
Yes, sir.
Can I get a motion for that?
I'll make a motion.
I got a motion by Commissioner Sessions, second by Mr. Fleming. Authorize my signature on the agreement that reflects the letter sent from the chamber. Any further discussion on it? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Anything else?
No, sir.
All right, item number 2 on it is approval of letter in support of Original Florida Tourism Task Force application for rural regional development grant, Florida Department of Economic Opportunity. Who's
They're
presenting that?
asking for the board's support in their application. That's essentially.
That's just, they asked for a request for me to sign the letter, but I wanted to make sure that y'all were okay with it before I signed it and supporting it. I was in support of it when they got it, but I didn't want to speak on behalf of the board.
Need a motion?
Yes, sir.
Motion approved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Fleming, a second by Commissioner Sessions. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. All right. We didn't have any other additional agenda items, did we?
No, sir, I do want to comment. This doesn't necessarily need to be an agenda item. Every year, the chairman signs a letter allowing Columbia County to do the mosquito spray at the music park. We just recently received that request. We typically don't even bring it to the board. The board dealt with it a number of years ago, but I just wanted to point that out for information. Unless
Any
anyone has a
any
problem.
questions or comments on that? I don't have any problem with that. All right. At this time, we'll open the floor to public comments and concerns. If you want to speak, make your way to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Hearing none, we'll move on to administrator comments. Do you have anything else, Mr. Harris?
Yes, sir, I do. A couple of things. One, I attended the chamber event last night, as most of you did, and it was very, very nice, well-organized, just a tremendous event. And I can't remember the name of the restaurant that provided the
Filling Fort,
Fort.
Brantford.
This was the Business of the Year awards, and it was really, really a nice event, and I enjoyed it. And they did a tremendous job with the food there as well.
Supporting the South End again, Mr. Richardson.
Yes, sir.
Just making sure you've seen that.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, the only other thing I would like to comment on is actually under your informational items.
Yes, sir.
We got the engineer's opinion back on the Coliseum being utilized as a storm shelter.
Yes, sir.
It doesn't meet any wind standard, wind load standard at all. We went back to the early 1700s, couldn't even find one back then that it
So, but we can put animals in it, right? Not
we
people.
can't put people in it.
Just not, yeah, just
Yeah, you might
animals,
be able
not
to
people.
put animals unless their people are attached to them. But,
I think the way those pet-friendly shelters went, though, Mr. Alcorn, you might can help me if you remember, they have to allow the pet to be with the people? So it won't really do us any good.
Yeah, I know. The bad part is the schools have so much, they don't have much time to clean up,
Oh, I know.
these events.
It's not that, it's like I said before, you take one child that's allergic to an animal, and when that child has a seizure, and you can't get to him, who's going to be liable? And that's gonna happen, guaranteed, it's gonna happen.
Well,
And that building will be there after everybody in this room is gone, that building will be there.
I don't disagree with you.
I agree.
Because you want in this document right here, it's about worth what the paper is written on, that building will still be there, and that's nothing against no sort of special services, but you can't get into the nuts and bolts of that building without getting into it.
Well, you said it a moment ago. It's really about liability. That's what this is about.
Yep.
This letter was looking at that aspects and trying to find some wind load, some codes that it did comply with, and it simply doesn't, which is unfortunate.
Yeah,
'Cause I agree with you. I think that building will be there for another 50, 75, 100 years.
No longer.
I wish it had turned out different. We tried, at least we looked at it. We'll just continue to keep using it as a post shelter. I guess we don't have any choice.
Yeah.
Did you have anything else?
No, sir.
Put you on the spot, just two quick questions. I brought up to you a while back about we were working on those dead trees down, I can't remember what road it was off of now, where they had sprayed the road right away, killed the trees.
Got that taken care of.
Did we get it cleaned? We got that took care of?
Oh, they haven't been cleaned up yet, but we've got the thing, and I've sent them a letter.
We have spoken to the gentleman, and he's going to go in there and remove
I
the,
knew he was going to push them down. I spoke to him about that. I just didn't know if it had happened yet.
well, no,
Okay, because I knew we were going to close the road off for him when he did it.
that's correct.
The other question was, on 217th, where they sprayed the road ditches from the edge of the field, one went into the road to the other. Were you able to make contact with anybody on that, or have we figured anything out there?
We were waiting on one item of the costs to be able to contact them on that.
Okay.
We had the expanse of it.
Well, we think we have all of that now.
Yeah, I know they were out there measuring the other day. I
Yeah,
just
we've
didn't know
got
where.
photos and measurements and everything, and Mr. Pravett's going to be sending them the letter with the cost on it.
Okay. All right. That's all I had for you then. All right, this time we'll just open the floor to board member requests and comments. We'll start with you, Mr. Richardson.
I was notified this past week that Suwannee County had its first case of West Nile virus that was confirmed in Suwannee County from mosquito bites. And I don't know what emergency management criteria is. I don't know what the state's criteria is for mosquito control, and what is, what is acceptable for grant money to be given out to the counties like us to do certain mosquito control. But it is a concern of mine that, until we get some good cold fronts down here and start wiping out some of this, these mosquitoes, we're going to end up continuing to have problems, especially with all the rain that we've had. I know we can't afford mosquito control. I realize that. I understand that it would just be cost prohibitive throughout the county. Plus, it wouldn't do a whole lot of good out in the woods. I don't think it would get out in the areas that it needs to get, given how far apart our roads are. But I would like to know if there's anything that we can do, whether we have to go through obviously the health department, talk to Carrie or Bill Jenkins. And Sam, since you're Director of Emergency Management, is there anything out there that we can look into?
I know with that former Irma, we had, there was some federal funding
Yes.
for that. We can definitely see those, there's an active case that we can tap into that and help out with the grant.
Okay.
I'll check it for
And last time we had to submit a letter requesting it, but it's usually, the times that I've been a part of it on submitting the letter, it's usually been after a tropical storm or a hurricane, like when Debbie came through, Irma came through. They knew that there was an area that was inundated with water, and they approved multiple counties of doing the aerial sprays. I don't know if that takes effect with the West Nile virus or not, but
I wouldn't even mind even if we were able to get more pellets, but I know emergency management's having problems, they don't give out the pellets very often, so we're limited on supply of those as well.
There's quite a few left there at EOC. I mean, if anybody that requested or wants them, we could get them provided for them, typically run out, because I know we actually trying to give them away.
Yeah.
I know after Irma, I stacked a pile of them back in that warehouse. There was a pile of them there.
Okay.
I'm sure what you're probably referring to, I received a phone call from your end of the county over the past week regarding it, mosquito control down around the Brantford area.
Yeah, that was requested, and I said, normally, I think what we've done before is the city of Live Oak has helped them out, because I believe they do mosquito control. Is that correct?
That's
Maybe
who I pointed them in that
somebody
same
else.
direction, but after, maybe they need to talk with Town of Lake City. I think that's who Spirit Suwannee's using.
But I realize those pellets, they don't work, it takes 30 days to work, and possibly in 30 days, we won't have this problem, but.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it. Good way to
I don't have a problem with that, if y'all want to do that.
I think
Can we make that happen?
help anything more accessible.
Yep.
It'd be a good way to get rid of them.
Divide them all up.
That's all I have.
All right, Mr. Fleming, you got anything for us?
Just something small. I mentioned it to Mark. I had the luxury of going over to the old Mazzell building, and nothing to the other department heads, but Miss Betty, Miss Lawrence, and Greg, Chief, but Mark, guys that work over there in maintenance, those guys were working hard. I went over and I walked in there and saw one of the guys had his shirt off. And when I got in there, Mr. Harris called it sweat equity. They were working real hard. They were making some decisions in constructing that old building over there. In that remodeling that they're doing, I think that it's an attaboy that they're doing a very good job, Mark, which I shared with you earlier. My first thought was, knowing that we just come out of our budget workshop and we talked about the monies and stuff, and next year, Mr. Harris, Mark, Board of County Commissioners, let's look at making some adjustments all across, but especially those maintenance, those workers. Those guys doing a heck of a job. If we had to pay somebody to go over there and do that tight work that they're doing, we'd be paying some money. They work for the county, but if we had to go out and hire construction groups or companies to come out there, we'd be paying. So I did say that I wanted to just bring that point out, and I encourage the commissioners to go and look at that building if you haven't done it, and look at the level of work that they're doing. I think they've done a magnificent job. I enjoy what they're doing. And I think it's worth it that we go in and give them some kind of recognition of what they're doing. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Ms. Hale?
Just want to echo what Mr. Harris said about the Chambers dinner last night. It was really good to see everyone there, all the businesses that were awarded and won, and the nominees. And again, the food and entertainment was just, as always, top notch. We appreciate that. But it's really, as a commissioner, to sit there and see these different organizations, even the nonprofits that were there, to see them get recognized and to have that opportunity to kind of shine in our community. That's what it's all about. And I appreciate that, and I recognize that. Thank you, guys.
Sessions?
I'm going to echo the same thing. I enjoyed it. Some of the live entertainment was a little suspect, but, you know. But I do have one thing of matter, though, and I'd like to direct staff to come up with a letter out there on my end of the world. After Irma last year, there were some signs that went down the interstate, McDonald's and the gate station. McDonald's replaced theirs, but the gate station still has a half a sign. And I'd like for us to draft a letter to the Gate Corporation to ask them to bring it back up to standards, you know, because we're trying to do things out there and make things better. And, you know, I'd like at least them have a functioning sign that looked like it was, you know, in working condition, because it's half a sign out there right now. So if I can, I'd like to direct staff to do that.
Can you handle that, Mr. Pratt?
Yes, sir.
Y'all have a problem with that? Nope. Anything else? Well, I'm going to beat that dead horse, Jimmy. The dinner, business dinner of the year last night was awesome. Y'all did a great job. Guy sitting next to you stole your thunder a little bit and wouldn't let you hold the microphone like he was supposed to. Wasn't even on the program, wouldn't sit down. But other than that, it was great.
Food was fantastic.
The food was good. Everything was great. Yeah, I like the way y'all changed it up with the small, medium, large, and nonprofit. And you know, it was real good. Every year it gets better and better and better. And we appreciate y'all stepping up to the plate and helping us fill this economic development void that we've had for a couple of days, and now we expect y'all to hit the ground running tomorrow. And
We need to earn that $5,000.
that's right.
Imagine that.
Confidential.
Confidential.
Mr. Chairman,
Just do one thing. When I call you in the morning, don't answer the phone. It is another great day. I already know it's a good day.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I feel bad because I didn't comment. It was great, but I had more to say about the food than I had about anything else because they're in my district. She does a wonderful job catering in any situation, circumstance, any condition. She does a great job. So if you don't have, if you've never gone down to the Filling Fork, check it out. Go down there, check her out, see what kind of food she has. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. And, but you guys did a good job too. Dressed up that place really nice.
Does anyone have anything else? If not, I just need a motion to adjourn. Second. Thank you all for coming out tonight.
They need to learn how to tap dance.